It's great to have you with me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. A couple months ago, someone said to me, you say, I know that, I know that, I know that a lot. And you don't know everything. So it's kind of irritating. That day, I stopped saying that. I had an understanding of where it came from. With my brain damage, there was so much I didn't know. And I would get kind of defensive about it in the early years of it. And so my response was, well, I know that, I know that, I know that, I know that. And I'm taking care of an elderly person who has dementia, and probably 100 times a day minimum, they'll say, "Oh, I know that, I know." The same kind of defensive, um, my mind may not be working right, but I don't need you to help me feel like an idiot because I already feel like an idiot enough by myself. All of us in life have so much to learn, but some of us aren't very willing to learn. So when someone says to you, "Dude, you got such a bad temper, man, you need to get over it." Or someone says, "You really have a potty mouth." Like, man, your mouth's like a sewer. Someone says, "You're not very nice to your kids. You treat your friends like dirt." Do you ever hear yourself talk? Man, you constantly sound like you're pissed off at the world. What do you do with those kinds of statements? Do you listen? Do you receive it? Do you try to recognize if there's any truth in there? Are you teachable? Today we're going to talk about a willingness to learn. Not to learn facts like 4 plus 4 is 8 and 4 times 4 is 16, although some of us are even resistant to true facts. We want our own ideas of the world to hold, and someone tells us a fact that comes against what we believe, we don't even want to listen to that. But I'm talking about internal willingness, that someone tells us we have a fault or we have a flaw, and are we willing to try to listen and learn? Because a real foundational principle in life is if we're pretty convinced that we know everything and we're real convinced that we are just fine like we are, nobody needs to tell me what to do or how to do it. Well, we're never going to go anywhere but here. Seriously. If you're so great where you are, you're not going to see any point in moving forward. And so you're going to be stuck right there in your less than stellar, less than admirable life, even though you're pretty convinced it's good. It doesn't mean everyone around you would agree with that assessment, and usually those around you are the ones who are paying the price for the places where you're not as good as you might be if you were willing to hear. So let's talk about this a minute. Even if someone tells you something very inappropriately, cusses you up one side and down the other side, and calls you pretty much anything but a white chick, and jumps all over your case and tells you you're anything but a decent human being, if there is truth in there somewhere, are you listening for the truth? Or are you looking to be all ticked off and offended? That is up to you. But if there actually is truth in there, you would be wise to listen for the truth and to aim to learn from it. If you actually have a spouse, a child, especially a young teenager to an adult child, because those people kind of do see things that we might miss, a friend who is willing to say to you, man, you know what? You are really, and it's not complimentary. And sadly, there's a whole lot of truth into what they're saying. And they cared enough about you to say it to you. Are you willing to learn? Are you actually willing to look at them and say, can you give me a specific example? They could probably start off with 10, just warning you. If you ask that question, be prepared for the answer. If it's a general demeanor thing, like, man, you're just constantly grumpy. You bellyache and moan about everything. I mean, you never have anything nice to say ever, and it gets old. Wow, maybe that's not how you perceive yourself. Maybe you think you're a really sweet person and you have this great attitude and you had no idea. You might say, okay, I hear that. And then you might ask another person or two whom you really trust and say, I'm not going to get ticked. I'm just asking this because someone said this to me and I want to know what you think. You get that same answer out of 3 or 4 people who know you. Yeah, it's probably real. And you might have to change your self perception because obviously the way that other people are perceiving you is radically different. And you're going to maybe have to make some adjustments to line up your self perception and their perception of you. That's really having a willingness to learn, to have a teachable attitude. There aren't a lot of people in the world who have it. I really hate to say this to you. We tend to get really defensive. We'll immediately turn it around on the other person. Oftentimes we'll project. Well, so and so does that, I know. Not, I can see it in myself, but I can certainly see it in the other guy. Yeah, we don't often handle this terribly well. So, learning to let our defenses down, really listen to the thing the person's trying to tell us, and believing if we can, because some people are just nasty so and so's and they're going to cuss us, but it doesn't mean they're not telling the truth. But if there's someone in our world that matters, really believing that they care enough about us to address this thing with us. So it's kind of a big deal, and we should at least be smart enough to listen to what they're telling us and try to see if there's any truth in there that we can glean. Yeah, really look at that. Think that through, okay? And then, oh my goodness, you don't just take it on for information's sake and go, okay, I'm an angry so and so and I cuss people and I'm frequently offensive and rude. Oh, well, that's just who I am. I mean, that is your business. If you want to proceed forward in that manner, I can't stop you. But if you look at it and say, wow, that's so not how I want to be, then part of that willingness to learn is learning how to do it differently, learning how to express yourself differently, learning how to own up to your own emotions, but doing it in a way that is reasonable and fair rather than just blasting them all over everybody who comes into your path and gets on your nerves, which is pretty much everybody because you only got one nerve left. We all know that person. Yeah, if you're not very cooperative, someone says, every time I try to get you to help me with this, or help me with the kids, or help me with the house, or honey, I just asked you to go camping one weekend a year, but you whine and cry about all the bugs and cooking over a fire. And yeah, if you're not very cooperative, and a family unit takes cooperation, and someone points that out to you, instead of being all ticked off and moody and give them the silent treatment, act like a jerk for a couple of weeks, really look at it. Okay, well, in what ways am I not very cooperative? And how does that impact you? How do you think that impacts our family? Be willing to listen and learn. Because you know what? You don't know everything. What do you know? I'm dead serious. There is so much in the world that none of us really understand. We always have something more to learn. And the world is a really interesting, fascinating, amazing place if we take that attitude of discovery. So, even in relationship to your own self, your own humanity, your flaws, your idiosyncrasies, your weak areas, look at it as a place of discovery. In learning about yourself and being willing to learn how to do things differently than you do them now. I'm going to give you a practical, real world solution. One of the people that works in the household where I work right now was preparing a meal, and I used to be a chef. So I watched this person cut up certain things and put things in the pan, and I said, you know, that really prefers a warm reception. And she said, what does that mean? I said, well, you don't put it in the pan cold and dump the oil over it and then turn on the heat. You put the oil in the pan, you turn the pan on. When the oil is hot, you put the meat in there and you go to get a good sear. That's it likes a warm reception. Same thing is true of corn muffins, in case you didn't know that. Put the grease in the pan, put the pan in the oven. Muffins like a warm reception. She said, wow, I'm 70 something years old. I never knew that before. And she told me the other day, she said, I made this meal and it was really great because I used what you taught me. It's just a simple little thing. It makes a big difference in the flavor of the meat because that hot pan seals in the juices. So it's juicier, it's not so dry, and it's more flavorful. Simplest little thing. Oh my goodness. Didn't even dawn on me that it was a big thing, but it was kind of a big thing for her. In your world, what don't you know? Really? Try to find out, especially if it's about you and things you're doing aren't actually working in your relationships or in your home life. so that your relationships can be more fulfilling, so that things in your home life can be smoother, run in a better spirit of cooperation. Be willing to learn. Willing to learn how you really are and how you can really act, and willing to learn another way of doing it so that things can go more smoothly and you can have a happier environment around you. It sounds so easy, and it's not, but it is kind of a big deal. I hope that you will develop that willingness to learn and that sense of discovery, even about your own self. My challenge question for you today is this: how willing am I to learn? Just in general. I literally knew someone who said, I went to school till 12th grade. I don't need anything more for the rest of my life. They're in their 60s and they've really lived their life like that. I have to tell you, they are one of the most ignorant people I've ever met. Not stupid, because ignorance is just a person who hasn't learned much and they have so much undeveloped potential. Don't be one of those people. I'm just asking you kindly that you would teach your children and yourself the value of a heart that is willing to learn. Thanks so much for being with me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.